Hello and welcome to Tai'Shar Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
We're here to discuss episode 6 of the Wheel of Time TV show. Yeah, so Will, if you have any thoughts there, I don't know.
Well, it's difficult to not start this one to me with some kind of thought-ending cliche that will make people who the folks who liked this episode, because there are some apparently online from what I see.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I was encouraged that, I often refer to Daniel Green, the fantasy news YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
It was his least favorite so far. So
okay, so we're not alone.
yeah. I watched it and I immediately knew Sam was going to have a lot of the same issues that I had, and probably some more that I'm not even thinking of. This one, there are so many nitpicks and so little upsides that I see. It's not that there's nothing.
It's not that it's bad. In my mind, it's not that the writing is bad. So far, it's not like I'm saying, oh, that was a dumb line that didn't land. Like, it's not that kind of thing. It's that we're I want to say this carefully.
No, say it. I think it's important.
At what point are we in fan fiction territory?
Right.
Because I believe we're entering a separation from the books, the point at which so if I have a friend that's really enjoying the show, I can't just say, oh, you like the show? Go read the books.
Right.
Because it's not the same deal anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's my big thing. Like, I don't have a problem with changing stuff, especially getting back to what Rafe Judkins said, the idea of adapting the whole series rather than just adapting a single book. So a lot of the changes in the episodes up to this one have resonated with that idea. But there are core concepts in this episode that simply do not. And so that's my deal, that it's like we're making changes now that are fundamental in a sense. Like, we might end up at the same place in broad strokes, just not like there's fundamental differences, and that's like just not my favorite thing.
And I don't want to harp on this too much. I don't have a ton to say about this that won't sound like complaining, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same.
I want to say I continue to enjoy the performances.
Yes, I agree.
Everyone does great. I think there are just a lot of amazing costumes and sets, and clearly a great amount of care and attention to detail. Like, you think about the physical Amerlin seat.
100%.
And not to get into something that'll tap on frustration, but the oath rod looks beautiful.
Yep, I agree.
And finally got to see Moraine with her forehead jewel and dress, and very much like I think she's kind of pictured in the books.
I think the lady playing Swan is great. Definitely like her mannerisms, her way of speaking, her aura. Yeah, all that lands perfectly.
We're given so much throughout these to like that it's easy to just focus on the frustrating things sometimes, and this is one of those times.
And I mean, like just because none of this stuff in this episode happened in the book.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like almost literally none of it.
Yeah.
That's just like, I understand a little bit why they're making some of the choices they're making, but in other cases, it's like, man, why?
Yeah. Basically everything in this, it's not like, the episode with Logain, it was like, okay, a lot of this happened
off screen.
Yeah. Or last week where it's like a lot of this happened in Camelin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like just a remix of what it's like familiar dialogue. Like you can kind of have the same impression of this is what happened in the books. It's just different places, simplified, maybe streamlined a little in a way that made sense. This episode was not that.
Yeah. And it felt very much like, from a plot perspective, this was a bunch of stuff that had to happen to get them where they needed to go. And
it's like they thought that the way they got to where they need to go in the books wasn't plausible, or the fact that they wanted to introduce Swan and
that
relationship
felt like,
with Moraine. Like, that seems like the reason
Yeah, that felt like
it's
that had a lot to do with what was going on, but
right.
also, and go ahead and I think talk a little bit about this. One of the big things that we know had an effect on this episode, or at least based off of the rumor that's out there, I think DragonMount.com reported that this was the last episode with Barney Harris, possibly.
Oh wow! So does that mean we have 2 more episodes in season 1? Will we just not have Matt in those episodes?
It sounds like that's quite possible,
Wow.
or at least it may be a very curtailed kind of presence of Matt. I'm not sure how that would work. Kind of the rumor is that he wasn't intended to stay behind from the Waygate.
Right. That feels like a fundamental shift.
That was such a strange thing. And if you rewatch that scene, watch it, particularly watching Barney Harris, and it kind of looks like it's built out of like his side of things is pre-existing footage that was not originally intended for that.
Oh, like he's like looking at the Waygate kind of thing.
Yeah, he's just kind of looking at the Waygate, and then when you cut to the wide shot of him, it almost looks like a freeze frame. And he's definitely not in the same position, by the way, that he is in the close-up. That's just a small continuity error, really, but it kind of feels like they had almost like a wide shot
together.
Yeah, and they were just having to cobble together this kind of thing, and they had the other actors, so they probably reshot them.
Like they may have shot him going through the Waygate, and then they had to cut it out or reshoot without him.
Right, exactly. That's I really think that's a likely scenario, in which case they had to write around him not being there, which is of course hugely unfortunate, both from a perspective of the effect it'll have on at least the next couple of episodes, and also from on the way that they have to work around it.
Yeah.
It's not just the loss of the character of Matt, the actor Barney Harris. It's also
what Matt would do in these next couple of episodes. It just doesn't make sense. Like Moraine doesn't know, or I should say in the show, Moiraine. Let's just say everyone's saying Moiraine. It's bugging me. Moiraine doesn't know who the dragon is of the 5 of them.
Right. And she emphasizes that right before they go.
Lets him not go through the Waygate, even though she opened the Waygate with the one power. Another thing that irked me a tad.
Yep.
So why couldn't you just reopen it?
And why? So we saw her pull down a building on the Battle of Winter Night, and presumably a Waygate may take a lot of the power to open, but even still, I'm
she's well rested. She'd be fine.
I'm not convinced that she couldn't just wrap Matt up with weaves of air and yank him.
Right, as the Waygate is closing, just make it happen. Yeah.
So that feels the whole opening with the power thing is a change from the books.
Yeah, okay, I can almost hear them in the writers' room. Like, well, if it's just moving an Avendasora leaf from one spot to another, what's to stop some kid in the next village from doing that? Sure, that's fair, but that's what happens in the books, man.
Yeah, people get lost in the way.
Just offend it, just offend what the. It's just it's that sort of thing that's irking me. It's like you didn't need to make that change.
Yeah, that felt like an unnecessary kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
The ripple effect that has.
You can't prevent the ways from being. You can't force the ways to be closed.
Right.
By removing the leaf.
I mean, there's a number of different things. Like, okay, so you're telling me every time that somebody has come through the ways or goes through the ways or some
you have to have a channeler.
Yeah, you have had to have had a channeler, which. Okay, fine. But to me, it's like, okay, does that mean we're not going to see the ways a few of the times later where there isn't a channeler with the party when they go through? Because in the books, all you need is somebody that can navigate your way through. And in this case, it's Loyal, or it could be somebody who has a map in another case. We'll see how they handle all that. And really, that's a relatively small nitpick, but it was like, it came at the end of an episode that was like, lots of different things
lots of different changes.
I was
and as we've said, that the whole episode is not in the book or in any book.
The cold open opens with young Swan
and the fingers of the dragon. Not in the books, unless it's in New Spring. I don't think it is it?
No. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the character of Swan, really.
Yeah.
In this, that's fine. I think that good casting, good backstory. I don't really have beef.
Yeah.
Although the thing that the thing I keep coming back to is these extra scenes. why aren't we building up the Two Rivers Five, having more scenes of like how many scenes of dialogue have we had with the five of them?
Yeah. I wanted to hear from Perrin and Egwene more, processing what happened to them in the previous episode. I mean,
agreed.
There's a lot of things I would have liked to have seen in this episode that we did not get. And that adds, like, if we're going to be making up stuff,
make up stuff that builds up the main characters.
Right.
Don't make other characters that, I don't know.
I mean, to be clear, I like the scene. I like the character Swan, and I don't mind her getting some extra time.
Nope.
My quibble with the scene upon rewatch is I wanted it to be more like clearly Tyr.
Yeah, sure.
And not just, a little settlement.
Of the dragon. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Why did her dad lose a hand?
I was
like, my first thought was he a channeler and the white cloaks chopped off? But they would have chopped off both hands, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I feel like there's probably some
I'm
illusion there that I'm just missing.
And maybe that's kind of a deep cut lore thing that somebody can.
I'm sure. I'm sure someone is. Yeah, I'm sure someone knows. So.
After the opening, we get the Hall of the Tower. Again, visually, I love
majestic,
this.
Great, love it, no problem. Other than the fact that Moraine shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be here. Nobody should be here.
Right.
And like I can hear the argument, well, we want to establish the White Tower as a concept, as this imposing force in the world, establish Swan and Moraine, obviously, other things, but man,
we can withstand a lot of changes if it's done well, but this whole episode felt strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, like it doesn't feel like the Wheel of Time books to me.
I guess that's the bottom line. It doesn't feel like the books.
Fan fiction can be good, right? I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with fan fiction, but if you're going to adapt the books, I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of material there. Just use it.
This scene is really, I don't have a problem with this scene. I've got little quibbles here and there.
It's funny to see people online be like, oh yeah, they built up Logain as this bad guy. And then they, gentled him, took him down like,
Yeah. What about that? Huh.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about Swan's look when we did the trailer reaction. I mean, I just like so much about this.
Yeah. I like the tattoos. She gets the fishing references in. Well, she's got the imposing emerald seats kind of will and demeanor, and all works.
You have Liana or Liane, as we've heard it may be. I would have liked a little more of her, actually.
Yeah, I agree. She's going to should be a central character. So
I was hoping that we'd get just a little bit more of just how she in the book she has a bit of an arc. I'm not going to get into it to spoil anything, but
which could very well be changed now.
Yeah, it could be.
I was going to say, I mean, we'll get Swan's arc has definitely changed.
Right. I love Logain's moment here. I really do. I mean, because
he does a great job of illustrating kind of the despair he feels.
Right. Exactly.
Like, kill me.
Desperation and despair. It is heartbreaking. I don't know if you remember, but Rafe, when they announced Alvaro Morte's casting, Rafe's thing is said he talked about him doing a scene and how emotional it was. And I think it was this scene. I think it had to have been this scene that he did and Rafe said, he will break you. I feel very confident that we're going to get more of Logain. This whole thing of the politics of the tower, it's important. It's not unimportant to the plot. So I don't want to act like it's completely unnecessary. Like the whole establishing the relationship between the different Ajas, the tension and all of that. But
Aja's -1.
Yeah, right. What DeGray doing? But when we get to this moment of tension, and if there's something else in this that you want to talk about, we can.
No, go ahead.
When Swan's like, so what have you been doing all these years? Well, we find out in a few scenes
Swan knew.
Swan knew.
So why did you press the issue in the first place? Like, just don't even talk to her.
She put her in this situation. In the books, the way this is handled is she demands a private audience with Moraine to give her a dressing down, presumably.
And there again, you can hear the writer's room. They're just like, people wouldn't find that believable. They, you can see how they got here. I can. More extreme, but it's just not what happened in the book.
and as such, it like creates this tension that feels to me very thin, because it's like, at the beginning, I guess for a fleeting moment, I did wonder, like, okay, are they changing their relationship and they're not friends? But I was
Yeah,
like,
they played
no.
that up well when she's
Right.
giving her dressing her down.
The scene later completely makes this all like, okay, so yeah, you were getting onto her, but specifically like creating the problem of, oh, what's your penance going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could see how Leandrin kind of forced the issue by telling on her a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm sure that's why they did it.
I mean, and there's a lot of things like that where it's like I can come up with my slightly headcanon reason why, but it's like
you're rewriting stuff, so you're trying to outthink Robert Jordan, which is fine, but it's a sort of thing that just wouldn't happen if you stick a little bit closer to the book.
Right.
And I get it. Eye of the World is not entirely representative of the rest of the series. We keep going back to that point. Fair enough. That's the reason they're doing a lot of stuff, but that's not the reason they did everything in this episode.
Right.
Swan and Moraine having a romantic relationship. I'm sorry. I knew we were going to get to it, but
let's go ahead and talk about it and we'll come back to some of this other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to be absolutely clear. My issue is not that they're
a lesbian relationship.
Couple.
Not at all. No, makes sense, really. I mean, get fine.
And also, I'm not going to say the phrase that this is nothing like the books in one sense, because yes, in New Spring, you have a scene where they kiss. I think they even are at one point called pillow friends, which was Robert Jordan's way of saying that they were a couple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But in the books at this point, they were no longer lovers. And
it's just a much deeper kind of
friendship.
It just changes the whole dynamic of her character.
Completely.
And it's almost like it's like a couple of things. It's like the writers felt the need to give a good reason why she and Lan are not romantically involved. Just because she's in love with a woman, okay. I don't like. I want it to be acceptable for a warder and an Aes Sedai to not be romantically involved,
right?
And for neither of them to be romantically involved with anyone else,
right?
Like, because that's at this point, Moraine was so focused on her mission, she just wasn't even thinking about romantic entanglements.
Well, yeah, exactly. She
is, and so that was like a key part of her character at this point in the
exactly.
books.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to be clear. I am totally in support of the LGBTQ community. This has nothing to do with that at all. It could have been a man that could have been, a different warder. I don't care. It could have been anyone that she was having a serious romantic entanglement with, and I would have been disappointed. It's not what I wanted for her at this point.
To me, it's just like you're saying. It changes her character fundamentally because it almost makes it seem like this mission that they have of getting the dragon, it's superseded by this little, we're having an affair thing that feels childish to me.
It just feels like fan fiction. I keep going back to that. Like, this is like some shippers, on Reddit are like, oh, yeah. Swan and Moraine are in deep.
It really does.
This is what we get in our TV show. Fine. Just irritated by it.
Where it really, to me, comes to a head of having a negative effect on the story is at the end when when Swan exiles Moraine.
Just this extreme reaction. Like you mentioned, the oath rod, forcing her to take an oath on the oath rod to never come back to the tower until the Emerald Seat tells her to.
I understand. They're establishing the oath rod. I know that's what they're doing in this scene. However, it bothers me as a fan of the books because it actually devalues the three oaths.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool scene when various times when the three oaths are taken. When people take the three oaths to prove they're not a dark friend. I mean, they could have used it in other ways. They could have.
Right. It's frustrating because it's saying anything an Aes Sedai says is as it was sworn on the oath rod.
Right.
It also, I don't know, I was a little frustrated with the use of by my salvation and rebirth, the use of that particular oath, because that's not usually sworn on the oath rod because it's superfluous at that point to add anything else.
Sure.
Because the oath rod's going to prevent you no matter what you say, from breaking the oath. And then that oath is reserved for if you don't have the oath rod and you're trying to convince somebody. It's, the I swear on my mother's grave kind of oath. And so it's mashing up a couple of different things there. And then the confusion of why did she have to have? She didn't need
swear an oath.
Yeah, she
right. Because if you swear an oath as an Aes Sedai, you didn't need to put it on the oath rod because you're only going to say things that are true. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
As a book fan, that really bothered me. But then the moment it's happening, and this is really where it comes down to, a friend of mine who has only read the first book. She was saying that she is assuming at this point that Swan is a villain. And when I was like,
I could see that. I could see how you get there. Yeah.
And then she's like, well, because she's corrupt, she's, she has this incredible power and she can lord it over Moraine. And in that scene where she's exiling her and it's all this, it's like this messed up power dynamic. And as I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty messed up. Like if this,
it is.
Okay. So say there was a man in the position of power in Swan, like obviously it wouldn't be, but if say it were, wouldn't that feel really odd?
Kind of icky, yeah.
Yeah. And as I was looking at it, I was going, yeah, I get that actually. Like from her perspective, this whole thing of the Armelin running around with a lover seemed like corrupt, like poor leadership.
Yeah. She's supposed to be above the Ajas.
Right.
She's supposed to be objective. And to be fair, in the books, she does have this secret conspiracy with Moraine specifically to find the Dragon Reborn.
Right. It's all about the Dragon Reborn.
Personal. I mean, there's a friendship there.
Right. But yeah, it's not like they have this.
The focus is on
the mission, on the job.
I want to give the show the benefit of the doubt that they're setting all this stuff up that's different from the books so that they can do justice to the Great Hunt.
Yeah.
These things have ripple effects.
Yeah.
There's immediately scenes that they won't be able to do or that will be fundamentally different because of the events of this episode. And I don't know. I hope that it kind of gets back on track.
Yeah.
And I use those words fully in meaning this episode got off track. I mean, I really did. I mean, it's funny. This is 2 episodes back to back of they were kind of talkies, and both of them are not in the books, but the last one was it didn't bother me nearly as much as this one.
Yeah. Well, and this one is very talky. Like the last one, we have the scenes of the Eamon torturing and with the wolves and everything.
Sure.
So so there's some like kind of at least kind of thrilling stuff. This one just felt very slow, oddly paced. And I don't know. It felt, here's a bunch of stuff that we wanted to have happen so we can get to other stuff later. And it was just disappointing to me because the writing in the show is good. This just felt like there was a lack of forethought before getting here. And again, I want to give them grace where I can because you have the Barney Harris situation that I'm sure.
Sure, yeah, that definitely complicated things.
Made an impact.
Yeah, and talk about ripple effects. I wonder how many reshoots they had to do if he suddenly wasn't going to be in a couple of episodes.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever find out exactly what happened there too. I mean, it's just at this point I'm even more like okay, so was it him? Was it
really? Good question.
I mean, I hope he's okay, as people have been saying.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, back to the show. Returning to the order we were watching things in, we have the scene where Moraine finds Matt and Rand and discovers that Matt has taken the dagger. And then she heals him. And at this point, okay, maybe
this also deeply bothered me. The fact that Moraine just walks in and just heals Matt of the dagger like it's no big deal.
Right. It takes a whole crowd of Aes Sedai.
Yeah. Like she in the books, like they try away from the tower and sort of seal the evil away, but he's still not okay. And now she just walks into especially the fact that they are at the White Tower. I mean, you could have, I get it. You don't want to tip off Leandrin or something, but you could still have gone to the blues lady, the Megan lady, or Alana, or just pay some lip service to the fact that this isn't simple.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because this is a problem for basically 2.25 books, and
They're just like nipped it in the bud.
yeah,
And also, it devalues what happens to the dagger next if it's that
Right.
easy to separate someone from the dagger and just purge the evil out of them.
and who knows, maybe well, anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, I remain open to the idea that they're still going to do something there. I mean, she even says if he touches the dagger again,
Right.
like
It's
some
that
foreshadowing,
does sound like
maybe.
they're setting something up, but at the same time, I was just frustrated that Moraine, like, she's so confident. I would have liked for her to have said something like, I think I've done what I don't know. I just
Yeah, didn't
there's
like that.
I didn't like that at all because it made that, which was a multi-book problem, into
Just
a
trivialized it.
yeah, and it also is. I mean, and maybe it'll change things, but in season 2, it's going to have ripple effects.
It is. It is. It very
regardless
much
of how
is.
they handle it from here.
Yeah, right.
One of the things that's strange in this scene is the dagger drops to the floor. Lan covers it with a blanket. Then we don't hear about what happens to it.
right.
Like a
You guys
huge,
just leave it in the end.
like
Which I guess is the Queen's blessings. I saw is actually Basil Gill at one
yeah.
point.
I don't know. I mean, like, sure.
or the Emerald's blessing, maybe.
Yeah, that would make sense more.
Anyway.
But yeah, they just drop it to the
Mayor's
floor, cover
blessing.
it with a blanket, and you don't have a resolution. Which I'm willing to guess that that may have had to do again with the Barney Harris business. If anything did, is that there may have been
sure,
clear, like, here's what happened to the dagger, but they had to like cut around something.
Dang, yeah. How much of this episode changed because of him?
Yeah,
I really wonder. I mean, the fundamental problems we have would not have.
Right.
Could not, like, those were intentional, but there's a few things like at the end.
Right.
Like, what would have been different in this episode if whatever happened had not happened?
After that, we get Moraine meeting Maigan in the bathhouses. It's funny. I remember us reading about the extras casting for this scene because it was the first evidence that there may be nudity. It's like weird and like
so
whatever.
Random. Yeah.
Moraine, wants to meet Maigan in the bathhouse because she doesn't have good baths out on the road. Presumably, she says, "Hey, I've been on the road for 2 years. Don't begrudge me this."
Right.
Maigan, and I meant to look up Maigan to remind myself of her character.
She is like a sitter or something. I didn't look. She's sort of in the background a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I remember her name from the book, so I was like, okay, yeah, this is an existing character.
I did not. She just kind of looks like Mon Mothma to me from Star Wars.
She does a lot.
Many brave Bothans died to bring us. Anyway.
She's saying to Moraine that she wants to order her to stay, and so presumably she's the head of the Blue Aja if she has that kind of ability. Which there's a funny thing in the books that I've never totally understood, where they have the sitters, but also they have, like, each Aja has like kind of a head that it is talked about every now and then, and like the and some of them have different names. Like the Green Aja is like the something
general, or
Captain General. Is that whatever?
Yeah, that sounds right.
But they don't like other Ajas knowing who's the person in charge.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, that whole thing was just I was just thinking about that as I was watching this. After that scene, it's okay. And here's another quibble I have coming up. So Moraine goes to see Egwene and Perrin. She kind of deceives Egwene because Egwene says,
exactly. And that, like, I'm sure she would say it's like, just pay, like what the conversation she had with her earlier, like, every word I say is true, even if it's not the whole whatever.
Right. But to me, it's frustrating because when Egwene says, "Have the others shown up?" There is no reason
not to tell
Moraine
her. It's like, that was kind of a jerky thing to do. Like, why wouldn't you just tell her?
This kind of comes up later when she meets Nynaeve. Nynaeve knows that Rand and Matt are there. Presumably that would come up, like, oh, Rand and Matt are here. Right. What? Moraine didn't tell me. Oh, they've been here for
dealing
like a
with
week.
Aes Sedai business that we missed that conversation, which may or may not have happened some
Yeah.
point off camera.
And at some point, like they would have said, I feel like especially Nynaeve would have said, wait, you've been lying to us. You're a dirty, rotten liar.
And maybe she will at the next
And maybe
episode,
she will,
possible.
but I don't see the
Possibly.
function of it at this point. Like,
Right. You think she would have said that before they went into the ways. And maybe another cutscene.
but
Just
also I
blame
don't
everything on Barney.
right. Yeah, maybe. I don't see why Moraine felt the need to not just bring them together. Like if she thought they were just going to flee, maybe. I don't know. And
yeah, maybe thinking that she's trying to keep them hidden and be more conspicuous or something.
And like I get that, but I need we have so much talking in this. It would have been really easy to have Moraine say to Lan is like something about best to keep them separate so they don't flee.
I know, right? Just a throwaway line.
Yeah. Would have been really easy. All right. Then we have the answer to our question. I actually cut out, because since I was so late getting the episode up this past week or last week, I actually cut out some of our conjecture about the photo frame thing. Because
some sort of gateway terangriel thingy.
Yeah. And this bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, what is that thingy? That's not in the books.
Yeah, it's
This
like,
doesn't have a gateway terangriel thingy to go see Swan, get laid.
There's something so... I think one of the things that people who really love the books, one of the things they like about it is how the magic system is like physics. It's very well thought out, and it has very clear rules. And there are terangriel that do certain things. They have limits, and there's always at least a decent reason that you can come up with why they didn't use XYZ, when it's like, oh, that would have just fixed everything. This, to me, it's like, I mean, this looks like it would be small enough to take off the wall and stick in a backpack and go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if
take it with you everywhere. Go back to the tower whenever you want.
What is this? And also, it seems to transport them to her home in the Dragon's Fingers.
I totally missed that. 100% whoosh right over my head. I didn't even think about that.
Or is this supposed to be an alternate pocket reality? Yeah,
idea.
Exactly. It just opens up a lot of questions that I know they're not going to be able to have, like the exposition moment, but
some kind
as we
Harry
find out,
Potter kind of stuff going on,
right? As we find out later, it's actually pretty easy to go see Swan without being noticed by herself with the girls.
Yeah, you could have just walked down the hall.
And so this whole thing, it's like, why bother with the terangriel and everything when it just, to me, presents a lot of questions about what is that, what are its limits, why can't she take it with her? And I can come up with reasons. I can do that on my own, but there's so much of that in this episode.
You're like making it up for them because it's not in the show.
So then we have the scene. We have some exposition after that where they're just talking about they basically both don't know who the dragon is. They don't know what to do. That's when Moraine says that you have to exile me so that I don't have to listen to the Eye of the World. Okay, there's another change. So she says, "Go to the Eye of the World," which is where the Dark One's prison is.
To seal the Dark One's prison before he can be unleashed on the world, or whatever.
And this may be fine. I'm not sure. I don't know. The Eye of the World in the Eye of the World doesn't make a lot of sense the way it is.
True. That is an example of the show or of the first book not really being like the rest of the books. So sure.
So if they want to make that change, I'm kind of like, whatever. I tend to, be more critical because of where it lies in this series of changes that feel unnecessary and or potentially detrimental. And so, but I'm like that one. I'm like, okay, so they're saying the Eye of the World is the name of the location of the Dark One's prison, and whatever other changes that I can be okay with that. It is a change. And I'm curious to see how it plays out, because I'm assuming the end of this season will be different than the end of the book, because I think most people agree the end of Eye of the World is kind of strange. There's a lot of things that aren't quite consistent with the rest of the books, and I don't know. It's kind of a confusing mishmash of things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yes. Well, once we've gotten there, then we can talk about how comical it is. I mean, I guess we could do it in a spoiler section, but I'm okay with, that's the sort of change I'm okay with them making, because it isn't just because it's not internally consistent with the rest of the books.
Then we get a scene immediately after that where Leandrin is trying to confront Moraine, says that she has sussed out that she brought all these folks from the Two Rivers and she knows their names and everything, and is very threatening when Moraine says, "Hey, I know about your man." that you're
That
keeping
was
on the
so
side.
random.
I don't dislike this. I think it creates a little bit of mystery, but it is like,
Okay, we're gonna have to meet that dude at some point.
yeah. So I'll save the spoiler section.
I was about to say, oop.
We got Loyal and Glory to the Builders. Excited to hear that.
Yep.
Then the scene where Egwene meets back up with Nynaeve. Again, no mention of the fact that she's been there for weeks at this point, presumably.
That's on brand for the books. These characters are not known for communicating well.
That is true. And then let's go meet Swan. In this scene, I liked Swan's character a little less. Well, I shouldn't say I liked it a little less. To me, it was a little less accurate to the book, just in this scene. Yeah. Where she's like so chill and everything. Like, I get it. She's trying to
play
be
cool,
winsome.
like show the right. But she's supposed to be a lot more fiery and have a bit of a temper.
Yeah.
Really, and maybe part of the problem is that the characters of Swan and Nynaeve kind of have some similarities in the books. So maybe they're trying to separate them a little bit.
I think you're exactly right. I had that thought, oh, geez, yeah, we need to distinguish these two.
Separation, yeah.
I don't have a problem with it exactly, but I felt like it was a bit of a departure even from what we've seen this episode, where Swan, she is I don't take no crap from nobody kind of person. And so for Nynaeve to be so
cavalier and kind of challenging.
Swan laughs at her, so clearly she's kind of taking it in stride, I guess is what we're supposed to kind of understand this. And I do think part of what they're trying to do is to make us like Swan, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I like Swan in the books. I think it's supposed to tell us, hey, this, you can trust her. She's on the level, even though there's all this pomp and circumstance. But as I said, this scene to me creates a problem with the whole thing earlier of having to sneak around. If Moraine can just walk right into the Amelin study, with the two girls that Leandrin, by the way, acted like, oh, you're keeping them so secret and everything. It's apparently nobody saw them. I don't know. It just creates issues.
It does feel weird. Yep, I'm with you.
Shortly after that, we get the trailer shot of Moraine looking out from the tower. Then the hall of the tower.
Time. Then she's banished on the Oath Rod.
Yeah, and
never to return until Swan Sanche calls for me.
I know I already complained about this moment a lot, but this really is my least favorite part for all the reasons I said. Plus, while she's taking the oath, they have this moment where I feel like she's almost overtly flirty with her.
Yeah, in front of everybody.
In front of everybody, exactly. And Swan is tearing up.
Right.
I feel like Aes Sedai are incredibly observant, and read into everything. And
I guess people would know that they were friends as novices.
But that's the whole thing is they're supposed to have not known that, and
okay. I was thinking they knew that at least. I
don't know. Maybe some.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. I also had the same thought.
Like this feels very obvious, and it gets to something that I will mention. And if you guys aren't watching Daniel Green's stuff, he does kind of 10-minute caps, and I appreciate it. You can watch his takes on it too. One of the things he says he understands why this is this way in the show. And the books, they talk all the time about Aes Sedai serenity and how it's impossible to tell what they're thinking, particularly in these moments in the tower. Like nobody is
that's all out the window.
Yeah, completely. I mean, like you have gasps
along with the ageless faces, I guess.
Right. And okay, I understand why it would be boring to watch like a whole group of people not reacting for a whole scene. Yeah, right. But it does change like the characters of the Aes Sedai who are kind of unflappable for Moraine to get so emotional in this moment in particular to me and Swan. Like I just, that to me, it's all part of what you said earlier, which is like, this doesn't really feel like the books. It
just doesn't. This stuff didn't happen on or off screen and is not in service of anything that did.
Yeah. Then we have this weird ritualistic, everybody turning their back on her, which again, it's just not, whatever. It's like, okay. At this point, I was so not on board with this episode that I was like, this might as well happen.
Sure, whatever.
Moraine rides out. Then Loyal comes, brings the boys, and Lan comes, brings the girls and Perrin. And then there's
Moraine opens the waygate.
Yes, uses the power. We've talked about that. One of the things in this moment, they have this little speech beforehand where they're asking her, like, "Hey, if one of us is just the dragon, then what's going to happen to the rest of us?" And
She's
you
like,
see,
I don't know.
yeah, you see her start to speak, and you get this feeling that like the three O's stops her,
From
like maybe
lying.
she was going to try to guarantee their safety, and
yeah.
the bottom line is she couldn't. But then, yeah, she opens the way gate. We have this weird moment where Barney stays. I'm sorry, Matt stays behind, and everybody screams as he looks kind of impassive.
He's just like, bye.
And
have fun.
Right. And then to your point, they could have just opened it right back up. And
right. All right, come on, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Get over here.
There's no explanation for why that couldn't be done. And I really can't think a solid headcanon reason that doesn't like really change the way the waygates work.
Mm-hmm. Which they've already done, so whatever.
Yeah. And it's funny because, again, at the end of this, I was just like, okay, this whole episode's been like this. So
why not? Why not one more? Why not the cherry on top? The Avendosaur leaf isn't even a thing.
Then Matt stays behind, and it's like, whoa. I mean, like that's going to have huge effects. But again, that's probably not something that they had a choice in, unfortunately. So anyway, that's that episode. You want to get into some spoilers?
Yeah, listeners, if you have not finished reading the books, you would not like to be spoiled by what has happened in them or what could happen in the TV show by our wild speculation, tune back in next week and we will discuss episode 7.
We'll see what happens. So, spoilers. Let's just talk about these ripple effects. For one thing, okay, Barney's not going to be in the next few episodes.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we going to end up in Faldera or not? And if we do, it won't be the same before or after Eye of the World. So if we come back to Faldera, obviously we're not going to have the Amerlin seat show up to meet Rand, the Dragon Reborn.
So the question
so they're
becomes,
just going to have to do that differently.
Yeah, I mean, they could still have the motivation of Thane stealing the horn, and that would still.
Then how does Thane get through the ways? Or does he not? If he's got a channeler with him, I guess maybe Leandrin, Thane. I don't know.
The man that Leandrin has
got to be a dark friend, I guess. Or something.
So it's either Thane, which is a possibility and would be a
sure, that makes sense since he's been in the city. Yeah, okay, that probably that seems likely to me.
That seems the most likely, but it could be Forsaken.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's Thane. That makes sense to me, and then that would help. As I was saying, it would help him get through the ways also to where he needs to get there to steal the horn. Not that Leandrin should be there at that point.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen, but she takes the ladies to Falma, and gives them to the Shan-Chan. So I don't know if maybe that'll still happen. I guess that could still happen.
Yeah,
they've built the rapport with Nynaeve, so maybe
there is so much questions about the way that Moraine and Swan's relationship is going to affect things. Are we going to have the Gareth Bryn relationship?
That's where I was. I'm okay if we don't have Gareth Bryn. I will be real sad though if we don't have Tom and Moraine at some point. But I was
like you. I was hoping that would just be better developed because I mean, most people in the book agree that feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Right.
I mean, you can read it into the books a little more on your reread.
But it's not like obvious there.
Right.
It's a lot more obvious than her holding a flame for Swan over all these years.
Yeah. And I hope, I suspect we'll at least get the character of Gareth Bryn.
I wonder if Swan will die.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do. I really, if you're not going to have that whole storyline with Gareth Bryn, maybe, I don't know.
They end up dying together in the last battle. And
right. I'd forgotten that.
Well, I figured you did. That's why I went ahead and said it, because it's like they do end up dying because Min has this whole thing of like a projection about their dying at some point.
Yeah,
and they actually don't. Let me correct, because they don't die together. They are together in the sense of that they're a couple or whatever, but they they die separately because that's part of Min's like that they shouldn't be separated, if but anyway. And I know what you're saying about Gareth Bryn. It's a little problematic because of course in books she looks like she's almost like a teenager,
right? And then this weird relationship where she's pledged an oath to serve him, and so she's doing his laundry and all this stuff, and
like she's like basically his slave. It's very strange,
right? And then develops feelings for him. It's like, oh, it's a little
Stockholm syndrome.
Cringy. Yeah. So I mean, you can see how they want to dodge that, but
I mean, like you could completely redo that though.
You could just cut out the whole storyline. I mean, I love it. I love Gareth Bryn and the old grizzled Rough Riders. But yeah, I mean, we're making up new stuff and cutting stuff out. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, we already talked about it. I'm just like the dagger, all the things that.
Man, golly, just an afterthought, just a dadgum afterthought.
I'm hopeful that it had to do with having to cut around stuff.
Yeah, around Barney. Yep.
Yeah, that's the only justification I have because it's like such a big deal. Right. Throughout the books of like,
and they've been building it up.
Yeah,
they've been building it up to what here? Nothing.
Yeah, and it's like, where is it now? We don't actually know where it is at this point. Matt just didn't pick it back up, but
yeah, and I mean, like, how's Fane gonna get it? Fane's got to have the dagger,
right? Yeah, it's a huge,
such a central part of Fane's character.
Yeah, is like having this creepy dagger that I was hoping by this point we would have seen something that indicated what the dagger is capable of, because of course there's the thing at the end of the Great Hunt where Matt slashes, I think it's a Shan-Chan.
He like bloats and like turns into just nasty old rotting corpse.
Yeah, instantly. And so you get this idea that, oh, there is something very wrong with this dagger.
Yeah. This hasn't happened,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for the next episode because
some cool stuff. Yeah. Going through the ways.
Yeah.
Potentially getting to the Eye of the World or to Faldera.
Yeah, either one.
However they do that.
I really am. And in spite of this, I am enjoying the show still.
Yeah, me too.
I want it to succeed. I want them to figure out, they're going to work around some of the stuff that, they're forced into.
Just don't want them to write themselves into a corner.
Exactly.
They're having to diverge further and further from the books because of decisions they've made.
Exactly. I mean, I'll be curious to see it. It may be, presumably they've already finished shooting
season 2.
Yeah, second season, or at least they're most of the way through it by this time. Whatever effects have already taken place in that sense. So we were excited when they went ahead and greenlit season 2.
For sure.
And I still am, I should say. But I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I wish they could have heard some of this feedback from the fans about
I know.
some of this, because I know this episode has its fans and has a lot of them. I read a Reddit thread where there was a lot of discussion about it. While there are, I think, a fair number of people that feel a lot the way that Sam and I do, I think there are some people who really like this episode. And then I do think there are people that are a little bit in between that are more like, well, it's not great that this happens and this happens and this happens, but I still like the episode. And again, we're not saying it's bad as much as we're getting down on it. We're frustrated at what
you're not adapting my books, man.
Right,
you're making your own thing, and that's fine. Do that, but just don't say you're adapting the books if you're going to do that.
So, like you said, Sam, I'm hoping that they'll kind of get back on track in the next episode, and that it's going to feel more like Wheel of Time again. Yeah. And hey, if once a season we have an episode that is
diverges wildly,
it
doesn't feel like it fits, then fine.
Then that's okay. That could be worse.
Right.
I think the main thing is it's concerning because of the potential ripple effects.
Yeah, because it feels like foundational changes. We'll see.
Right.
I would love to, I don't know, hear what Rafe or other folks involved react to the negative feedback.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure they're not surprised.
Well, I'm sure that there's probably even more wider reaching things that we're not aware of as far as like the effects that Barney's stuff had.
Yeah, like how is Matt Donal or whoever gonna get to where he needs to get to once Fane steals the horn, say, and like all the places Matt needs to be, like, he does not like he does a ton of stuff in at the Eye of the World. necessarily.
He plays a pretty major role throughout the second and third book.
Yes, 100%. So we got to find a way to get him back with the group.
Yeah.
And if he has to channel to go through a Waygate, well, he can't channel. So how's that going to work?
Yeah.
Some questions here.
Yeah, I saw somebody pose the question, what's Matt going to do now? Or why did Matt stay behind? And somebody said, so he can turn into Donald Finn. It was like,
yeah.
Like, fair enough. Anyway. Well, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I still like the show. I'm disappointed by this episode. I am hopeful the next one gets us back on track. And you can see how it could.
Right.
How they're setting themselves up to get through the rest of the book and do the rest of the book justice.
Right.
Matt aside.
I'm excited for the next episode regardless. And look forward to talking with about that one then.
All right. Yeah. Listeners, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share about what we've said, feel free to contact us on all the socials. Podcast TSM, not TSM Podcast. That's Thriving Sexy Marriage. If you'd like to donate on our website, tsmpodcast.com, there's a big yellow donate button. We'd appreciate it. If not, we're always happy you're here. And until next time, Tai'Shar Menethrin.